Good morning. Welcome to Reading the Science of Mind in 1 Year. I'm Reverend Rafe Ellis, Senior Minister and Spiritual Leader of Center for Spiritual Living Common Ground in Central Maryland. Today is March 13th. And what we do here is we read the selection from there's a chart in some of the Science of Mind text, and honestly, I'm not sure which ones. I know it's not in all of them, and maybe I'll do some research so I can give you that information. But Reverend Dr. Edward Viljoen figured out this schedule where we kind of ping pong all around the book, but it pulls together the ideas in a really beautiful, coherent thread. And what we do is we listen to the reading for today and then share whatever comes alive in us as we hear it today. They're not prepared talks. This is how I'm hearing it today, because one of the things that I have experienced is that every time I read this material, I see something slightly different. I know something a little bit more, however we want to phrase that. So that's what we're about. I appreciate you joining us whenever you join us. Thank you for being here, and I hope you are blessed by this experience. If you do have questions, you are welcome to put them in whatever chat function that you're using. Same thing with just general comments and insights that you have, because those are always welcome. We learn together. And when I have time, I go back and look to see if there's anything there that is asking for a response, and I'm happy to do that. So right now, let's take a listen to our selection of the day. Here we go.
March 13th, Science of Mind, A Philosophy of Faith, A Way of Life by Ernest Holmes. Reading from page 437, paragraph 5, through page 439, paragraph 1, using inclusive language. Jesus forgives a man and heals him. Matthew chapter 9, verses 5 and 6. Now some of the scribes who heard Jesus tell the sick man that his sins were forgiven said he blasphemed God in attempting to forgive sins. But Jesus, reading their thoughts and knowing what was in their minds, asked them if it were easier to forgive or to heal. For whether is easier to say, "Thy sins be forgiven thee," or to say, "Arise and walk"? In order to prove his position, he healed the man, saying, "Arise, take up thy bed, and go unto thine house." This incident has to do with a great psychological law. If we labor under a great burden of past mistakes, we devitalize our body, and if the condemnation is great enough, it might render the body incapable of moving. Jesus, seeing that the sick man was laboring under a load of condemnation, told him that his sins were forgiven. This removed the weight from the man's consciousness, making it possible for him to receive the healing word. Would Jesus have forgiven the man if he had thought that God held anything against him? Certainly not. He knew that the eternal heart is one of love, and that the divine forgives from the foundation of the universe. Indeed, he knew that the divine mind is too pure to behold evil, and knows nothing about sin. God knows no evil. Why should it disturb any of us to be told that the divine knows nothing of our sin, nothing of our want, nothing of our lack of any kind? The tragedy would be if it did know. If it knew sin, it would be a sinner. For what the infinite mind knows must be. Sin or mistakes are outside the province of reality. Jesus knew this. He also knew that while people labor under the sense of condemnation, the burden of their thought weighs them to the dust. Being able to read thought, he knew just what step to take in relieving the burden of this man's mind before telling him to rise and walk. We should do well to remember this lesson. How often we condemn when we should forgive. How often censor when we might praise. What untold grief of heart might be relieved by words of cheer and forgiveness. Especially should this lesson be remembered in the training of children, where they so readily respond to the thought of others. Remembering that the Spirit holds no evil toward us and that it is love. We should emulate this divine lesson and forgive all, that our hearts may be free from the burden of our own condemnation.
So the key things that come up for me in that is the very concept of condemnation and forgiveness. And my experience of those, both from my study and my direct personal experience and the contemplation of these teachings and the Bible and other um, spiritual texts, is that forgiveness is a necessary human journey that really is for us to excavate the things that are keeping us from experiencing our own divinity. Um, and I really do think of this spiritual journey as an archaeological excavation, if you will, that the essence of us has always been exactly what it is, whole, perfect, and complete. That creation creates out of itself, and in order to expand itself, it has to have free will. Otherwise, we would just be what Ernest Holmes calls automatons, or just, little Stepford people that are replicating one idea rather than any expansion. And so when I think it through logically, it doesn't make sense to me that an infinite intelligence, consciousness, whatever we want to call it, would give its creation, itself as its creation, free will, and then punish it for using it. Um, which science of mind explains as we are not punished for our mistakes, we're punished by our mistakes. That we live in a world of cause and effect. Our thoughts cause and effect. And so it's that journey of dancing with all of our conditioned thinking that sometimes bumps up against spiritual truth. Because generationally, we are conditioned to limitation. We are conditioned, all of us, regardless of what area of the globe we come from. Humanity is conditioned on a reward punishment paradigm. That we behave in a manner to get attention from the very start because our lives depend on it as infants, right? We cry, we do whatever we need to do to get attention. And then as we get older, we're still seeking that external validation because we have forgotten the power that we are. And so this whole dance, the whole idea of remembering, which is what the parable is about, it's about the power of remembering that we are free. That yes, we make mistakes, but we don't have to live with the effect of those mistakes for the rest of our lives. We don't have to live in this categorical soup of I'm sorry. Right? That we get to own, yep, I missed the mark there. And then we make adjustments, we choose again, and we experience the effect of that choice. And each time we're getting closer to spiritual alignment. We're getting closer to choosing in alignment with spiritual principle. What if we didn't make that good or bad? What if we simply leaned into it that just this is how it is? And stop beating ourselves and each other up for being in a process of growth? What if we embraced it with a sense of awe and wonder and joy? For me, that changes everything. It gives me permission to experiment. It gives me permission to make choices that are way more bold than when I'm in that protection mode, to choose from a consciousness of trying to prevent rather than a consciousness of trying to create. So that's what the reading brings up in me. And what I know at the core of my being, beloveds, is that the essence of us is whole, perfect, and complete. It just is. And that doesn't mean that that always translates to our behavior. And so we get to keep looking at ourselves, and we get to give ourselves a break. Not in a way that cosigns poor choices, but in a way that empowers us to choose again. Very different. Very different. So that's what's alive in me this morning. Good to see you, Jib. Yes, I'm having a fabulous day so far. Woke up on the green side of grass. It's a good day. All right, so I'm going to take us into our time of meditation and contemplation. And this is simply 5 minutes of practicing being present with what is. I invite you to avoid trying to make something happen and to avoid trying to prevent something from happening, but just practice being present with whatever happens for the next 5 minutes. And then I will close us out with a spiritual mind treatment, also known as an affirmative prayer. Here we go. There's only one breath, breathing all of life, one light illuminating the form and the formless, one wholeness everywhere present. It is the source, it is the substance, it is the activity of creation. One expressing in the multiplicity of infinite possibility. Nameless, changeless, and yet known by many, many names, and never fully encompassed or limited by any one name. I know it as peace. I know it as God. I know it as Spirit, the great mystery. I know it by the silence. And I know it by experiencing it expressing itself as me, as everything in this physical realm, as everyone in this physical realm. The divine, the great mystery interacting with itself in relationship with itself, animating itself in form to expand and experience itself, to express that infinite possibility. And so I know, being made out of it, by it, to be it, to express it, I am a portal of it. That the creative thought that is acted on by law, that world of cause and effect, the process that is creation, lives, moves, and has its being in, through, and as me. As a portal of it, I recognize that all thought moves consciousness, moves the substance of creation into action, and that mechanical operation of doing within the creation process that we call law acts upon whatever is thought, whatever is moved into it, and simply makes it so. Knowing nothing of judgment, it simply says yes. And so I recognize in that process there can be no guilt, shame, or blame in an infinite yes. And I'm grateful for that activity of that mechanical doing within the creation process, that activity of law. I am grateful for its perfect mirroring back to me. What is operating in my thoughts, in my beliefs, how I am moving consciousness into activation, into form, so that I can choose and choose again. Free from any guilt, shame, and blame, I simply open myself to that continued awareness and celebration. Ah, thank you. And then recognizing the degree to which I'm in alignment, and shifting and shifting and shifting again. Each time choosing more in alignment with the truth of being. And I am grateful for this journey. Grateful for everyone sharing this journey. Just grateful. And so knowing that the word spoken is the word fulfilled, knowing that I have anchored this reminder for this day, I release. I release all resistance. I release all static. I release every conditioned human thought and habit that would prevent my whole complete experience of this word made manifest in my day. I let it all go and step into the divine yes to be and experience the infinite everywhere I look, everywhere I go, in every breath I breathe. And so it is. Namaste.